Jeff Bezos is more or less the richest man on the planet. According to Forbes, and the last time they published the rich list, Amazon owner Jeff Bezos was the richest man in the world, with a fortune estimated at around $177 billion. Spare a thought for poor old Mark Zuckerberg. He's only fifth on the list at only around $100 billion. Somehow, I think he'll survive. That's a big number, and it's hard to understand, so let me explain it this way. Jeff Bezos' personal fortune is larger than the GDP of 75% of the countries in the world. That's a single guy with the resources of an entire nation. And it's also worth noting that this is an amount of money that no one could possibly spend in a lifetime, regardless of how extravagant their tastes may be. Jeff is around 58 years of age at the time of this recording, and let's assume that he lives until around about 80 years of age, and in order to use up all of his $177 billion before retiring, he'd have to spend around $20 million every single day for the rest of his life. That's well over 10 times the average income an American makes over his entire career. And they'll have to be spending that every single day for 8,400 days in a row. Maybe he'd need to purchase a brand new jet every single day for the rest of his life, or maybe a few yachts and a few islands. Let's just say it's not easy to spend. Jeff may be the richest in modern times, but if you look at the richest of all times, he's not even close. The individual who holds this title is thought to have possessed a wealth that was more than twice as big as Jeff Bezos and considerably larger than Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, all combined. Even though this man was the richest of all time, there's a good chance you've never heard of him. I'd like to introduce you to Mansa Musa, the richest man of all time. As for why you haven't heard of him, there are two good reasons for that. First, he was born almost 750 years ago, and second, he was the Sultan of the Mali Empire. I'm based in the UK, and most of my viewers are located in parts of the world where much of Africa's history isn't given a huge amount of attention. But that's too bad, because the Mali Empire, which was the largest empire in Western Africa, was really something to see. At its height in the 14th century, it covered almost 500,000 square miles and was home to around 5% of the world's population. In only a few generations, it grew to be extremely prominent and wealthy, establishing the Mali Empire and laying the foundation for Africa's golden age of trade. That came primarily from two factors: gold, which was in abundant supply, and salt, which was likewise available. So much so that gold mines in Mali accounted for half of all gold in Europe, Africa and Asia at the time. Gold is a valuable resource, so it's no surprise that people have always wanted it. But what might seem strange to us is that salt was also considered very valuable in some parts of Africa in the 14th century. Salt was so important that it was worth as much as gold. Salt is an important part of the human diet because we need it to survive. It also makes food taste a lot better and keeps food from going bad when you need to preserve it. So Mansa Musa was born back around the year 1280 AD. He was the 10th ruler of the Mali Empire, and he took power around about 1312 AD. Before we get to the figures, it's important to remember that Mansa Musa was a Muslim, and one of the 5 pillars of Islam is called the Hajj, which is the holy pilgrimage to Mecca, which must be made once in your lifetime. Mecca is in modern-day Saudi Arabia. The pilgrimage that followed Mansa Musa of Mali to the Arabian Peninsula is without doubt one of humanity's most spectacular journeys. Before I talk about Mansa Musa's pilgrimage, just to give you an idea, the modern-day pilgrim may take 2 or 3 weeks and maybe take a couple of suitcases with them when they go on their trip to Saudi Arabia. Not quite the same with Mansa Musa. He took with him 60,000 troops, as well as 100 elephants and camels, and a small force of 500 highly trained fighters. There was enough food, water and animals to eat for everyone. In other words, Musa travelled his 2,700-mile journey in the midst of a mobile metropolis that stretched farther than the eye could see. Well, yes, he did take a little spending money. In this case, it was 21,000 kilograms of solid gold. You know, just in case there was some bargains he needed to kind of get from duty free. You might be wondering how exactly he transported such a vast amount of gold. Well, this job was left to his 12,000 slaves, each of whom was given almost 2 kilos in solid gold apiece, along with bags of gold dust which was used as currency throughout his kingdom. international currency and Bitcoin wasn't quite ready back then. All of this taken together is enough to imply that the world had never seen anything like the spectacle of riches put on by Mansa Musa during his pilgrimage to Mecca. As you may well know, another of the pillars of Islam is called zakat, or charity. That's right, Mansa Musa hadn't bought all this gold for himself. He was planning to give all of it away. It is said that so much gold was handed out to the poor en route to Mecca that Mansa Musa single-handedly crashed the price of commodities across most of North Africa and the Western Arabian Peninsula, including the major gold trading cities like Cairo, Medina and Mecca itself, precipitating a decade-long recession. Legend has it that Mansa Musa started a tradition. Every Friday for the entirety of his pilgrimage, no matter where he found himself, he had a mosque built. Considering the trip took almost 2 years in total, that's a lot of mosques. So in today's terms, how rich was Mansa Musa? Establishing the exact number for Mansa Musa's bank account today is practically impossible. But most often the figure used, accounting for inflation, is around about $500 billion. That's about the GDP of Norway or Ireland, not a small number. It's just an estimate, not that it matters. Mansa Musa was so rich that essentially he had no limit to money. He had complete control over his life and didn't have to answer to anyone. He could do anything he wanted whenever he wanted to. Fortunately, it appears that the majority of what he wanted to do was give his money away in order to better other people's lives. And there are much worse ways for a person to spend the greatest fortune in history. What can we learn from this? Well, for me personally, it's always really interesting to learn what the wealthiest do with their money. It also motivates me to want to earn more so that I can give more. If that's you, click on the link below and let's talk. Stay safe and we'll catch up with you soon.